Hey, it's me, Lost in Thought, and for some strange reason, you've decided to click on my video, hello. Now, you might realize that most of the time I make just videos about dragons and drawing dragons and my lore of dragon worlds and blah blah blah. But I decided that I want to do some book reviews, especially fantasy books, and especially if they include a dragon. This book is relatively unknown, so I figured it'd be good to do a review about this book. That way, the author can get some readers, because I fully believe that most, if not all, books deserve some audience. So, this is my attempt to get the author their readers. This book is a more traditional YA. And what I mean by that is, you know how YA is kind of skewed lately and is leaning more towards adult and beyond content rather than, that strange area between adulthood and child years? Yeah. So by more traditional YA, I'm talking about, the whole 12 to 18 years of age. But this, I feel like, is a little bit earlier in that. I would recommend it for anyone between the ages of 10 and 15 because it doesn't really deal with too much mature content when it comes to like battles and bloodshed and blah blah blah. And the most it gets at romance is pining, which I love to see in YA books and I really wish there were more of. So I recommend this for readers who either enjoy reading stories for a younger audience that don't have much, garbage in it, or for kids who are looking for a more their level story in this strange age of YA. So the story in particular takes place pretty much in our world, but also has, the whole gateway to this other world, aka gateway to Arisha. Um, but it's got like a magic school setup. And I know what you're thinking. Magic school setup, modern and fantasy worlds. I think I've seen this done before. And you're right, you probably have. And I wouldn't say this is the most unique way to go about it, but I feel like this is a way where it's done right. They don't push into the whole school and make it all about, oh, learning magical powers. Oh, now I'm suddenly the chosen one. Though I am sure at least one of the characters is some version of a chosen one. I'd say this book is comforting. And I feel like nowadays we get a lot of books that deal with a lot of more mature content, especially with YA literature, and a lot more darker themes, which I'm fine with. I enjoy a good dark book. But every once in a while, I like to kick my feet back and read something that is entertaining and comforting. Something that I would read when I'm feeling down. I don't want my emotions to go all over the place. I don't want to fall in love with the characters and then have them utterly destroyed in all the ways. No, this is a book for people who want to break from complex narratives. The protagonist in this story is a pretty typical protagonist. Her name is Genesis, and she has lived pretty much most of her life searching for a chance to find her family. Basically, in the very beginning of this story, her parents go missing, and due to some circumstances, they know one clue about the disappearance of their parents, Genesis and her brother River. Genesis knows that they mentioned their parents being a threat to Arisha. And they're like, oh, what's Arisha? Well, there's this academy slash university thingy called like Arisha University, but it's also called by another name. And so she does everything in her power to get into that university. Of course, she succeeds, and from there goes on to meet all of her classmates and teachers who have different abilities and blah 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 magic nonsense and searching for parents. Yes, yes. Good stuff. Good stuff. So I've talked the past 5 minutes about good things about this story, but I feel it's necessary to also talk about the bad. So this story has a lot of interesting aspects, but if I have to put it in a couple sentences, the writing is amateur. I don't mean to sound like I have a huge ego or something, but the mistakes that are being made are the first things that writers are told specifically don't do that. There are a lot of instances in this book where the narrator is telling us directly what is happening with the characters, how they're feeling, and that sort of thing. And I understand the issue with attempting to write an interesting story when you are having a narrator who's telling you the story. But in order to write a story that readers can not only connect with, but like really enjoy, it is always best to find some sort of way to show your reader what's happening. I know a lot of writers hear this a lot, the whole show don't tell. So if I ever need to make an exact example of what that means in context, I can do that. Let me know. Unfortunately, that is not the only issue that this book has. That is the main issue, and it does get better towards the end of the book, so that definitely shows improvement. And I believe that this author does have a lot of potential because, first things first, they actually finished their story. As much as I can talk about writing, I have yet to finish a story. So the fact that they finished it, I fully believe they can go on to be an amazing writer. So if you want to watch their journey and watch as someone slowly learns how to be a better writer, this is a great choice to start on this series. Now for the other issues, the characters. I believe before I talked about how a lot of the characters could end up being a bit stereotypical. And for a book of this age level, I do think it requires a little bit more attention. But more than that, I believe the main characters should have more attention to detail with them because it feels like I'm looking at a drawing instead of a character. I see this drawing, and in the drawing, the person is smiling. So I think them happy all the time. But I don't know that they're smiling for a certain reason or what gets them to smile. I believe that is where this writer struggles. As a reader, I get bored if I think I know everything about a character. And I do think that you should reveal this through time if you're a writer. But with her, I think if the writer added more times where the character's exhaustion and how they are just not confiding in anyone really gets to them. Like maybe they become really irritated during this one class and everyone's like, "What the heck is wrong with you?" And she's just like, "Ugh." Like give her a chance to act uncharacteristic if she's being pushed because that's how you can show her dimensions as a character. Now, for one of the last issues I have to mention here, I have to say the entire lack of tone and like basic description. Now, the story does have times where they introduce the characters, buildings, and whatnot, but I feel like the writer is neglecting the fact that through descriptions you can set tone and really get your readers to feel the things that you want them to feel without, directly telling them, "Hey, you feel this way." So I wouldn't really say that this is a major issue, but this is something that is a very useful tool that I think would be beneficial to the story to get them to really understand what the writer wants to present. Now, finally, for my last issue, this is one that's a little bit more personal. I absolutely despise it when a main character has about 70% of the opposite gender's population pining for them. Like, flirting between characters is fun and all, but when four different guys in a class of, I think it was like 16, all started thinking, oh wow, she's pretty, I'm gonna flirt with her at different points in the book, it gets exhausting. Please, please. I can't deal with it. Okay, so that's the pretty much end of my review. I wanted to say that the blue stickers are the blue stars are my personal opinion, and the yellow ones are from in a more objective standpoint. I ended up going with the yellow as a 2 point, like, I don't know, 2.8 stars, because I feel like this writer has a lot to work on, but they do have potential and their characters are interesting. Well, I ran out of time, so I hope you enjoyed that review. See ya!